What's going on, everyone? So earlier today, the Los Angeles Lakers news came out that they are targeting Nick Richards. Nick Richards is somebody that I've talked about for a while now, right? Kind of randomly throughout, even last trade deadline, touched and made videos about Nick Richards. Because he makes a lot of sense for what the Lakers need. A sizable, versatile center that can defend at the rim, block shots, as well as help with the rebounding. You can slot in a backup role. You can slot him in a starting role alongside Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis gets the night off. He's the guy that can come in and kind of fill that void. Give you 8 and 8, double-double off the bench. Guy is a very solid contributor. Now, there is no real word if whether he's available or not. The Lakers have inquired, touch base, and based on the reports, had conversations about Nick Richards, but conversations and the Charlotte Hornets listening is not the same thing as them actually making a trade and making a move. We know that the New York Knicks have done the same thing even before they did the Karl Anthony Towns trade, that they've touched base on the potential of Nick Richards. Because, again, he's a guy, true 7-footer, 260, 255, 260 range in that department, which, again, gives you the physicality, gives you the rebounding. Starting level, like, where does he rank as far as, like, is he a true starting level center? Obviously, I think it always depends on the pieces around him. I wouldn't start him over Anthony Davis, and he's not so good that it would justify moving LeBron to the 3, but post LeBron, he's still young enough. He's 26, so he's still young enough to be that piece that kind of can fill in that void and slot alongside Anthony Davis at that point. Somebody like a Miles Turner, now that's somebody that justifies moving LeBron to the 3, slotting in Miles Turner, and then moving Anthony Davis to the 4. So somebody in that range, yes, you would do that. Nick Richards, he's a guy that makes a lot of sense. In a pinch can start. In a pinch, he's a guy that can come in, go give you, like I said, a double-double off the bench. But is he really the guy that you want starting and justifying moving LeBron to the 3? Probably not. But Nick Richards, it boils down to cost. Right? Contract-wise, he's dirt cheap. Contract-wise, you give up Jalen Chifino and Jackson Hayes if you wanted to, especially if Koloko ends up getting written off or written good to finally return, which is odd that we haven't heard anything about that. But, right, trade 2 vet minimum guys. We can't stack vet minimum contracts, but basically a vet minimum guy and then like a Maxwell Lewis or something like that. Boom, now you got a Nick Richards. What does the pick department look like? You're not giving up a first for Nick Richards. If it's like, like a Rui level deal where you're giving up, say, 4 seconds to go and get Nick Richards, then you do that all day, right? But you can't, he's very good. He helps with what we need, but he's not so impactful that this is the piece. Now, look, there is the potential that he may be. It's very different when you're playing in Charlotte with the players on Charlotte. It's another thing when you're playing alongside Anthony Davis and LeBron James, right? Like, you'd be amazed the strides that players can take when you're playing along those guys. And Nick Richards is in the game. If he is slotted alongside Anthony Davis, he's not going to have to worry so much about the defensive workload because Anthony Davis, as the weak side help, good luck trying to score around the rim, right? Like, so, but on his own, he is a guy that, again, is capable of blocking shots, can provide that rim protection, gives you the size you need to bang with the big boys. He is ideal for what we need in that backup role. Come in, slot in, give us, 30 minutes in a starting night, but most nights you're looking at him 15 to 20 minute range, right? Guy that's just kind of coming in, providing some minutes. JJ Redick, we've seen, really wants to start playing Anthony Davis more at the 4. Okay, if you're going to do that, Nick Richards makes much more sense than Jackson Hayes, because Nick Richards he's got like 40 pounds on Jackson Hayes, where Anthony Davis, he's the bigger of the two, right? So you're kind of going smaller, not height-wise, but physicality-wise by moving AD to the 4, right? Yes, perimeter defense and just Anthony Davis's versatility on the defensive side is incredible. He covers so much ground, he's ridiculous. But Jackson Hayes alone on an island is not what you want as far as rim protection goes. Now, if you were to slot in Nick Richards, now you're talking. Now you're talking about a guy that can come in, slot in, And now Anthony Davis can go and patrol and do his thing as like the weak side help, but also helping out on the perimeter. And Nick Richards, you don't have to worry about, right? He can protect the rim. He can deter shots. He's a guy that just makes so much more sense in that role. Offensively, he's not a guy that is cooking, right? But he's a guy that can play and slot in perfectly into that like Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford role that you saw with the Dallas Mavericks last year on their run, right? Nick Richards' ability to be a floor running big, his ability to be mobile, and you can run different actions with him, right? Run some pick and roll action, right? Have him as a lob threat. If you're out in transition, you know he's hauling, you know he's coming. He's going to give you that effort. He's going to give you that energy. Would Charlotte even be willing to trade him, though, is the biggest question. Like I said, just conversations, not necessarily actual trades getting done. Everyone has a price. Is that price within reason? There's not really anyone else on Charlotte other than like Bridges that maybe you would want, but I don't think that they're going to trade him. So really, you only really want like Nick Richards. Like I've seen people throw out like Grant Williams. Stay away from him, right? Like you do not want him. I've seen people throw out like random guys. Like Charlotte just doesn't. Their core guys, like the guys that we would want, are all their young, talented guys that they're not going to want to trade. The only reason they may be willing to trade Nick Richards is because they have a younger, arguably better version in Mark Williams, right? Thing with Mark Williams is, can he stay healthy? That's been his biggest problem, is the health department. If he can stay healthy, then he's a better rebounder, still gives you the same shot blocking, right? They're higher on Mark Williams. That's why Nick Richards, when Mark Williams is healthy, usually Nick Richards is coming off the bench to back up Mark Williams. But Mark Williams has just, again, dealt with injury issues, so Nick Richards has kind of been in a pinch. Outside of that, there's no one else that, personally on Charlotte, that I would want to bring on this team, that I would give up assets for, right? Like, and, you know, like if you had to take on a bad contract in order to get Nick Richards, you're better off just waiting for like a Valanciunas or something. So if you can just get Nick Richards, you do that all day. That's a no-brainer, right? Whatever you want, second round pick wise, maybe even like a pick swap, sure, it's yours, take it. But ideally, you want to keep those two first. Again, Nick Richards, he's still young, 26, so he's a guy that you could have for the next 6+ years. He's a guy that's cheap enough to where he's on a friendly contract, especially for trade. At some point, you're going to have to pay him. But even then, like, how much are you really paying him? Probably $10 to $12 million a year, if that. Right, like, is probably realistic. As far as Richards coming, like, you're for it all day, but it's what is the cost? Now, if you can get Nick Richards, still have all your first, still have all your real tradable guys, and like D'Lo, Rui, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, even Austin Reeves if you needed to, if the right trade comes along. Lakers aren't just going to trade Reeves, but if Steph ends up going like, hey, I want out, like, you can go do that, still have a guy in Nick Richards that can help impact this roster, right? Like, point is that you can get Nick Richards. If you can get him reasonable, again, he's not worth a first. He's just not. No one's giving up a first for it. If all it would take is one first to get Nick Richards, like a team like the Knicks wasn't even willing to overpay for Nick Richards. A team like the Knicks that is basically all in, has pushed all their chips in, wasn't even willing to give up a first for Nick Richards. The Lakers definitely shouldn't give up a first for Nick Richards. But, again, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever, sure, here you go, you can have it. Pick swap, whatever, sure, you can have it. But as far as like the first, you need to keep that so you can go make those other moves. Bring in Nick Richards, go get whatever, Jeremy Grant or Cam Johnson, get somebody like that. Go bring in like a Bruce Brown or something. Now all of a sudden, you bring in 2 or 3 guys, you look up, it's like, oh, now the Lakers are a contender. Nick Richards, I really like slot in the backup role. I still think Walker Kessler is my favorite, and if you had to give up a first for Kessler or Richards, you do it for Kessler all day. However, they want like 2 firsts for Walker Kessler, which is too much for Kessler. 1 first, I wouldn't mind it, you do it all day. 2 firsts, not so much. To me, it's kind of like which team would break first. I think the Hornets probably want to wait on Mark Williams and see. Right? I think even if they are considering trading Nick Richards, they're in a position where they're going to be patient. Right? You're probably not getting Nick Richards. Look, I would love it. I'd love if we wake up tomorrow and Nick Richards is a Laker, right? Sign me up. I'll be up here like, whoop, whoop. I'll be cheering, hollering, hooting, you name it. However, I think realistically, chances are the Charlotte Hornets are probably going to be patient, wait and see. Is there a team that ends up getting desperate? You know, an injury happens or something, and they're like, man, we really need a center, and they're willing to pony up to go get Nick Richards. That's a possibility. Charlotte's just not, there's no real reason I see Charlotte rush into the door to trade Nick Richards for a couple seconds. You want to find out what's going on with Mark Williams. You want to make sure he's healthy and good to go throughout the course of the season. Then, of course, you want to see, you know, like, does the team get desperate enough to give up a first or something for him? If not, then I could see him going to a team like the Lakers or the Knicks. Do the Knicks end up getting desperate? Like, if Cat ends up going down or something and misses a month or something, do they go, you know, like, hey, we really need a center. Fine, we'll just give you a first or whatever for Nick Richards. So don't expect it. If it happens, beautiful. I'm all for it. Let's get it. I think more likely than not, if it does happen, it'll happen closer to the trade deadline or maybe around when I can see when Valanciunas becomes available, the Lakers being able to use him as leverage for these other teams. Like, hey, we want Valanciunas, but we want Nick Richards more. So it's like, hey, if you're willing to trade Nick Richards, now's the time. Otherwise, we're just going to go get Valanciunas and then we're off the board. Right, and maybe somebody else will give you something, right? Or, same thing with Utah. Like, hey, we want Walker Kessler. We'll give you a first for Kessler, but we're not giving you 2 firsts. Otherwise, we'll just go get Giannis Valanciunas for 3 seconds or whatever, right? Like, that kind of thing. So I do think that the Lakers will be able to put pressure when Valanciunas becomes available. We'll see. We'll see if it changes or if it impacts anything. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think, like, yes, go get Nick Richards? Nick Richards is great. Do you think that they'll even trade Nick Richards? Because, again, conversation is not the same thing as actually getting a trade done. But I'd love if that trade could happen. It'd be wonderful if we could pull that off. Is there anyone else that you'd prefer? Again, I personally would prefer Walker Kessler, but don't get me wrong. If we get Nick Richards, I'm excited. Again, he can rebound. He can block shots. He can run the floor. He's got the size that you need. He's the ideal type of fit that we need at that position, right? It's just Walker Kessler gives you all that same stuff. He's just younger. And he's shown the ability to stretch the floor. He's shown the ability to make plays out of the post. Or Nick Richards, again, I really like him, but I think he is right now best in that backup role, slotted, 20, 25 minutes at most, maybe on some nights. But how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.